Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Wadash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. And also honor and salutations to those of you who are of the hopeful elect and are out there teaching the word in sincerity and truth. So I wanted to get into this topic. I was so everybody knows about that guy from Baton Rouge, Darash, and uh, what he's been, not what he's been, but what he, the video that came out recently of him, and just to show uh, the state that he's in mentally. But what that did was it caused me to go and look at the men that he came from, that spiritual life lessons group of men. So it made me go over there and watch a video that a war. I don't know if he calls himself a war anymore, but it made me go and uh, watch a video from him a few months back, and he was saying something to the effect of you got these guys watching the news, and he was upset about, mm, I guess, the methods of watching is what I'd say. Watching the news and talking about Trump and talking about the different things that are leading into the mark of the beast. Somehow we're wrong for doing that, and so that's what I wanted to talk about. Just if not the news, if not current events, then what are we supposed to watch as men of the Lord? What are we supposed to keep our eyes on, right? Um, the prophecies say certain things, and along with the prophecies saying certain things, um, it says that certain nations would be in power, certain things would be happening with these nations that are in power, and we'd have to watch for those things. But how else would we watch those things if not the news, right? We don't know. Um, we're not in the G20 summit, let's say. We're not in um, the I don't know, the Bilderberg group or whatever it is. We're not in these meetings that are behind closed doors. So we have to use what the Heavenly Father is allowing us to see, uh, to figure out what time we're in, to orient ourselves um, in the time. Right. Matter of fact, let's go here. Let's go to what is it? Yeah, that's it. Ephesians 5 and 15. It says, see then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil, right? So I want to look up this word circumspectly first. Circumspectly, acrobos. It says exactly, accurately, diligently, right? But also when you go into, let's do it like this. Let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. Boom. This is the word circumspect in the Edom Online. It says cautious, wary, literally looking about on all sides, from Latin circumspectus, deliberate, right? Guarded, which is a good word based on what I want to talk about today. Well considered, right? Past participle of circumspicere, looking around, take heed, right? From circum, around, roundabout, right? Um, so that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Let's go back to that scripture, right? It says, see then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, right? Redeeming the time because the days are evil, right? Let's go there, redeeming the time. Exagorazo, which is to say, to redeem by payment of a price, to recover from the power of another, to ransom, buy off. Metaphorically, of Hamashiach freeing the elect from the dominion of the Mosaic law at the price of his vicarious death, to buy up, right? To buy up for oneself, for one's use, right? To make wise and sacred use of every opportunity, right? For doing good, so that zeal and well doing are, as it were, the purchase money, the purchase money by which we make the time our own, right? So, in other words, let's go back to that. If you're redeeming the time, right? You're buying the time, right? By looking around, right? Because if you're a watchman, right? And you think of yourself being positioned on a, let's say, a battlement, which is, when you're a kid and you would draw a castle, right? You would draw that, let's say, that jagged top. It looks a lot like the rook on a chessboard, right? That's a battlement, right? And if you're on that battlement, right, it is your responsibility, right? You think of it, it's in a cylindrical shape, right? You have to look on all sides of that battlement, right? You can't just look on one side and see one thing, or you can't just look on two sides. You have to look on all sides, and that's why it's saying circumspectly, right? We have to look everywhere and at everything and in everything to understand, what's going on, right? We don't. Let's say it this way: the Heavenly Father has plans down here, right? And He was gracious enough to give us little things here and there that would help us understand where we are in time, right? And so we have to use those things, use those tools so that we can understand what time we're in, right? And so that's what I want to talk about tonight. We're going to watch the news, right? We're going to talk about the news. We're going to talk about who's in power, because it's no different than when the prophets of old, let's say, spoke about Nebuchadnezzar, or when the prophets of old spoke about Antiochus, or when the prophets of old talked about Alexander the Great, right? When those prophets spoke about those powers that were in control at the time, you can, let's say, compare that to the presidency, if you will, right? When we talk about these different people in office and this, like for instance, right? I look at this guy. Who's the guy there? Tesla. Not Tesla. That's not his name. Damn, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Elon Musk. I look at him as a modern day Chaldean, right? I look at let's say the music world and the guys like Tommy Mottola and what's this other guy's name? Leor Cohen, and all of those different music executives. I look at them also as the Chaldeans, right? And so, just like the prophets of old spoke about all those things, it spoke about the Chaldean magic, if you will. It talked about the powers that be, right? Wasn't Pharaoh prophesied against, right? So just like those things were talked about in ancient times, right? Us being in the stead of the prophets, right? The scriptures say this. Uh, oops. Hmm. Scriptures say this. Where is it? I have to go right. I think I know where it is anyway. 1 Corinthians 14, I think it is. Boom. This is 1 Corinthians 14 and 32. It says, "And the spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets," right? And so, if we're going to be in the stead of the prophets, we have to do the same things, or let's say it this way: we have to do the same things. Not that we have to do the same things, but we will do the same things that we did in ancient times, right? So, speaking about who's in power, speaking about their enterprise, all of those things matter in us orienting ourselves in the time, right? Uh, let's do this. Let's do this. There's that Micah. Oh, Habakkuk. Okay. This is a Habakkuk 2 and 3. It says, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie, though it tarry. Wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry," right? So, how do we wait for it? How do we do that? But by watching and making sure that we see all of these little details, right? Because they all matter. They're all a part of the Lord Yahweh Shai's testimony. So we have to watch all of those things, right? So let's get started. I got a few scriptures pulled up here, but I'm gonna just you know let it ride, and ask that the Lord bless me with the spirit to bring it out. So what do I have here? Oh yeah, yeah. I was like, what the heck is this? This is Matthew. Um, let's start at 40. Matthew 26 and 40. It says, "And he cometh unto the disciples and findeth them asleep, and saith unto Peter, What, could ye not watch with me 1 hour? It says, Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak," right? So the Lord Yahweh Shai himself, as a matter of fact, let's do this, right? The Lord Yahweh Shai himself commanded that we watch and pray, right? And what are we going to watch? What are we watching, right? The prophecies, of course, right? But how do we know that it's a prophecy coming to pass? How do we know that? Right? We'll talk about that in a little bit, right? So let's go to this word watch here, see what it says. Gregoriuo. It says to watch, metaphorically, give strict attention to, right? Be cautious, active, right? You can't you if you're, let's say it this way, if you're giving strict attention to something, you're watching everything, right? Not just a piece here and a piece there. You're watching everything, right? We have enemies. And what do we do when we have enemies? Like, what did the let's say the watchmen, or the we had spies, let's say, go out and see what the other company is doing, right? They can't leave out any details, right? They were gathering intel, right? That's what we're doing. We're gathering intel. When we watch the news, or when we hear something that Elon says, or we hear something that Trump says, or we see some legislation that's passed, or We look at some new tech that's being implemented. All of those things are intel, right? All of those things are a part of the clues to figure out where we are in time, right? So let's keep going here. It says to take heed, right? Least through remission and indolence, some destructive calamity suddenly overtake one, right? Remission is basically to say, I think it means like to leave something out. Let's see. Remission, the cancellation of a debt, charge, or penalty, right? Let's see. Damn, I can't even say that. This word here of the seriousness of intensity of disease or pain, right? Let me see. Diminution, diminution, right? Diminish, like to say diminish, a reduction, right? In the size, extent, or importance of something, right? Exactly that, right? And the reduction of a prison sentence, right? Especially as a reward of good behavior, right? So if we remit something, right, that means we're leaving it out or taking it out, right? So let's go back. It says this to take heed leads to remission and indolence. Let's see what indolence means. 'Cause I don't know that word. Indolence, avoidance of activity or exertion, laziness, right? Idleness, sloth, and activity, right? So through remission and indolence, right, leaving something out, right, some destructive calamity suddenly overtake one. You see, so we're supposed to watch so that that doesn't happen. That's the job of a watchman. Oh, the watchman doesn't get to say like, "Oh, that over there is not that important." That'd be irresponsible of the watchman. Matter of fact, let's go to that. I don't know if I have that pulled up. I think I do. It's in Ezekiel. Yeah, let's read this really quick since I said those things. This is Ezekiel 33 and 1. It says, again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, speak to the children of thy people, and say unto them, when I bring the sword upon a land, if the people of the land take a man of their coasts and set him for their watchman, if when he seeth the sword come upon the land, he blow the trumpet and warn the people, then whosoever heareth the sound of the trumpet and taketh not warning, if the sword come and take him away, his blood shall be upon his own head. Right. So the watchman is supposed to be watching for the sword. Right. When you were on that, a lot of these armaments or armories, as a matter of fact, around the area where I live here, uh, I'll do deliveries in New Bedford, and they have a old armory that looks just like a castle, and it has those battlements at the top, right? And if you do any research on New Bedford, um, it's right there by the ocean, right? And so you got in those battlements, and you can see if the enemy was coming through water, you can see if the enemy was coming through land, right? So that all that makes sense, right? If you're a watchman and you're on that battlement on the top of the castle or on the top of the rook, so you can understand, you're supposed to watch all directions, right? You might even have several watchmen on one armament or battlement, right? You might have several, man. You might have 3 to 4, so they can watch all directions at all times, right? Might have a little looking glass or a telescope, if you will, right? So that's the watchman's job to watch everything. Now, that ain't nothing over there. We ain't gonna bother with that. No, we have to watch everything because the Lord gave us clues. He gave us um, hints to the time, right? So let's keep going. Let's go back to that. Let's go here. Where was I at in here? Right. So it says in Matthew 26 and 41, watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Right. So we're supposed to watch and pray, right? Watching and praying. All the details that are out there, we gotta look into them, right? Matter of fact, what was that? Let me see if I can find that. I read that one, not that one. Nope, that's not the one. Bear with me. I'm just trying to find this one. Here it is. Yep. This is excuse me. This is Ephesians 6 and 11. It says, put on the whole armor of the most high, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Right? Oh, right. So what are the wiles of the devil? Let's find out. Wiles of the devil. Wiles. The method. Methodia. Right? Cunning arts, deceit, craft, trickery, right? Mm, you see? So we're supposed to watch these things, man, right? We're supposed to watch everything that's happening, right? Because it's the wiles of the devil, the methods of the devil, right? We're not in these meetings, so we gotta know what to watch, right? We got to see whatever the Lord is allowing us to see. We got to take a look at it, right? All right, so let's keep going. This is I wasn't even sharing that last one. It was this one. Salakia, just so you can see it. All right, so let's go to this next one here. Uh, yep. This is Matthew 24 and 42. Actually, let me just jump up real quick to 32, I think it is. Yep. Now learn a parable of the fig tree, right? When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Right? So when we start seeing certain of these clues that the Lord left for us, that's how we're going to know what time we're in, man. We have to know what time we're in, right? So let's go back down to 42 here. It says, watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come, right? So there's watch again. I don't know, probably a different word. Well, maybe not. Yep, same word. Yep. Right. To watch, right? To take heed, least through remission and indolence, some destructive calamity suddenly overtake one, right? So we have to watch, right? No matter what it is. Verse 43, it says, but know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore, be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Right. So that's how we get ready, by watching, man. That's important. We can't leave that out. Right. Yes, the Lord is magnificent. The Lord is powerful. Right. The Lord is going to do uh, certain things that are going to be, let's say, galactic in nature, or magnificent in nature. But we also have to watch what's going on with these nations and their relations with each other, right? Which we'll get into in just a second. So moving right along. This is Isaiah 62 and 6. It says, I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day nor night. Right? And this is what you see. The men of the Lord, any little thing that comes out, they warn of it. Right? They explain the implications of it. They go into the scriptures and say how it could relate to a certain prophecy. That's important. Those things are important, right? It says, "Ye that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence." Right. Verse 7, "And give him no rest till he establish and till he make Jerusalem a praise in the earth." Right. So this is what we're doing, man. Right. We're seeing certain things and we're warning of them. Right. That's our job. That's our stewardship, our vocation. Right. Let's keep going. Yep. This is Jeremiah 6 and 17. It says, "Also I set watchmen over you, saying, hearken to the sound of the trumpet." Right. So as a watchman, right, you blow that horn, depending on what that sound was. You might blow a horn to say a guest is coming, right? If the king is expecting a guest and you're on that battlement and you blow that horn, and it means that a guest is coming, right? Or you might blow that horn because an enemy is coming, right? But you gotta know the sound. You gotta know the sound, right? It says, "But they said, we will not hearken. Therefore, hear ye nations and know, O congregation, what is among them." Right. So the Heavenly Father set us up as watchmen, right? That's our job, to watch, to figure out what's going on, figure out what time we're in, right? What's this here? hmm Let's go here. This is Isaiah 21 and 6. It says, "For thus hath the Lord said unto me, Go, set a watchman, let him declare what he seeth. And he saw a chariot with a couple of horsemen, a chariot of asses, and a chariot of camels, and he hearkened diligently with much heed." Right. So you imagine this, right? You got a chariot, some horsemen, a chariot of asses, right? You don't know which either of these are, right? So what did he do? He hearkened diligently with much heed, and he cried, "A lion, my Lord, I stand continually upon the watchtower in the daytime, and I am set in my ward whole nights. And behold, here cometh a chariot of men with a couple of horsemen." And he answered and said, "Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her gods he hath broken unto the ground. O my threshing and the corn of my floor, that which I have heard of the Lord of hosts, the power of Israel, have I declared unto you." Okay. So as a watchman, right? What did he say? He hearkened diligently, right? With much heed, right? What else did he say? "I stand continually upon the watchtower in the daytime, and I am set in my ward whole nights." Right. So all day, all night, he's doing his job. He's watching, right? And that's what we're doing. Okay. So I read that one. Okay. So what are we watching for? Right? What is it that the watchmen in this time, the prophets of the Lord, the men of the Lord, what are they watching for? Right? Let's go here. This is Revelation 19 and 10. It says, "And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, See thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahushua. Worship the Most High, for the testimony of Yahushua, the spirit of prophecy." Okay. So if we are testifying of the Lord Yahushua, right? If we are professing his name, then we have to speak the prophecies. And how else will we know if the prophecies are coming to pass if we're not watching the news or reading articles and figuring out what our enemy, our main enemy, is doing, right? Because when you go into the prophecy, right, how we knew what time we were in, we based it on who was in power at the time. Matter of fact, what is that? Let's go to Daniel. Let's go to Daniel. 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 Let's go to Daniel 7, right? Now, this is Daniel 7 and 1. It says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, right? So so he's mentioning Belshazzar, king of Babylon, right? They don't want us to say Trump, but he's saying in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, right? A king is being mentioned here, right? But further, it says Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had three ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. And after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it four wings of a fowl. The beast had also four heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and had 10 horns, right? And so these beasts, right? The first being the Babylonian Empire, the second being the Medo-Persian Empire, the third being the Grecian Empire, and the fourth being the Roman Empire, right? And as we know, this America is like the second leg of the Roman Empire, right? That's how we know where we are in the prophecy, right? By mentioning nations, right? These different powers that were in control at the time, them being in power, them being in control, and would tell us what time we're in or what part of the prophecy we're in, right? Matter of fact, I have Daniel 8 pulled up too. So let's go there. This is Daniel 8 and 5. It says, and I was considering, behold, an he goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram and brake his two horns, right? This ram being the Medo-Persian Empire, and this goat being Alexander, right? And so when Alexander came around, and if you go into the history, right, the Israelites in those times told Alexander that this prophecy or these prophecies about the goat or the Grecian Empire were about him, right? So by that they knew where they were in prophecy, right? This is Alexander being mentioned here. This is the Medo-Persian Empire being mentioned here, right? And so by mentioning the nations and their interconnectivity, we understand where we are, right? So when we see, let's say, Iran go into uh, 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 Israel, or Israel going to Iran, or them fighting each other, let's say, that's a part of prophecy, because we know that, as a matter of fact, let's go here. Let's go here. Let's open up another one of these, and let's go here to this, this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Boom. So when we go to Ezekiel 38 here, right? It talks about Gog, the land of Magog, right? The chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, right? It talks about turning thee back and putting hooks into the jaws, right? It talks about the Persia, Ethiopia, Libya being with Gog and Magog, right? And it says this is the point I want to get to in verse 7. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Right? And so this is I want to go back to that. Where was it? Right. And be thou a guard unto them. You see? So by Iran and Israel doing what they're doing, right? And we understand that Russia has um, financial ties, military ties with Iran. What is Russia going to be forced to do but to defend them? And what is America going to be forced to do to defend Israel? Right? How would we know that there were airstrikes on either or Iran or Israel um, against each other if we weren't watching the news? How would we know that? How would we understand where we are in prophecy if we're not watching those kinds of things? Right? If we're not keeping our eyes open like the watchman, right? So all of those things matter. All of those things are important. And if we're going to be watchmen, we have to watch for everything, right? What does the scripture say? Be not ignorant in anything, any matter, small or big or large, something to that effect, right? So we got to watch everything, man. Okay. So that was it. I think I read all of these. Let me read this last one. Right. Boom. Let's go here. This is Psalm 64 and 2. It says, hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, right? From the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words, right? So that secret counsel of the wicked, we don't get to see those meetings. Like I said, we don't get to see it. So how are we going to know where we are in prophecy? How are we going to know um, what the wicked's intentions are, or let me say it this way, where we are in the wicked's intentions, if we don't watch? Y'all talking about Trump and Elon Musk? Yes, they are big parts. The things that they're doing. Let's go here. I thought I was done. Let's go to. Let me see. I don't need to open up another one. I'll go to this one. What is that? I think it's Job. Job 20. Let's see what we get here. 22. Boom. Where it says, where is it? Let's do this. Excuse me. This is it. This is it. Okay, let's go here. There's Job 5 and 12. It says, he disappointed the devices of the crafty so that their hands cannot perform their what? Their enterprise, right? How are we going to know what their plans are? How are we going to know what they're doing? Their enterprise, right? See. Wisdom, sound knowledge, success, sound or efficient wisdom, abiding success. Sound or efficient wisdom, abiding success of the effect of sound wisdom, right? So, how are we going to know about their wisdom? How are we going to know about what their plans are unless we watch? Okay. Let's look for this one in Job 20. Let me see if I can see what I'm looking for. Right. Job 20. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Boom. Job 20 and 22, it says, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. When he is about to fill his belly, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain upon him while he is eating? How are we going to know when this is happening if we're not watching? Okay, so that's it. Um, Hopefully that was edifying. I want to give all praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Chak double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Honor and salutations to the elect. With that, I say Shalom.